to. I want to talk Man United, though. Big changes at boardroom level, Carvey. Difficult times for them on the field, and as we gather in the dressing room as well. Are they still able to attract the world's best?
I think the answer is yes, but they need to be in the Champions League. I think you were talking about the summer window. The summer window, we know players like Erling Haaland, for instance, are going to become available. Now, from a financial point of view, Manchester United have the resources and the finances to be able to do a deal for Erling Haaland, even though once you factor in the release clause, the agents' commissions, the wages, you're probably looking at a deal that's worth in total about £300 million.
As well as all the other clubs who are going to be in for him as well.
Like Manchester City, like Real Madrid, like Barcelona, like Bayern Munich maybe. So they have the money available to do the deal. But the question is, are they going to be in the Champions League? That is the big question. Now, I think what you were referring to in your question was the fact that it's been announced today that Ed Woodward will be leaving the club at the end of the month. And looking back at his time, you have to say that on the pitch, it's been disappointing. He's been running the club day to day for 8.5 years. Manchester United have not won the title in that time. And really, a club the size of Manchester United should have won multiple titles in that time. They should have won the Champions League as well. They did so under Sir Alex Ferguson. But you have to say that it was a very, very difficult job that Ed Woodward took on. It was a very difficult double act to follow of Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill. And mistakes were made. Obviously, mistakes were made when it came to appointing managers. Mistakes were made also in the transfer market as well. I just think when Ed Woodward looks back at his time running Manchester United, will he think, if only I had managed to appoint somebody like Jurgen Klopp? If only I had managed to appoint Pep Guardiola? Because I think if he'd managed to get Klopp or Guardiola, the football would have taken care of itself. United would have carried on winning. They would have won titles. They would have won the Champions League. Then the focus would have been off Ed Woodward, and he could just concentrate on doing what he proved that he was very good at doing, which was running the commercial side of the operation. So I think, if only, as far as Ed Woodward is concerned. I know he gets a lot of criticism, and a lot of it is justified because a club the size of Manchester United should be winning titles.
The Glazers wouldn't criticise him, though, because he's made them lots of money, hasn't he?
I think the Glazers are very happy with the job that he's done. You know, they bought Manchester United using a leveraged buyout in 2007. Ed Woodward was one of the investment bankers who was involved in putting the deal together. So he is somebody they trust, and he is somebody that they trust enough to run the club for them. And it was all going very well when Sir Alex Ferguson was there. But Sir Alex Ferguson has not been replaced properly, adequately. And you have to say that Ed Woodward is responsible for that. He didn't get the right man for the job.
A couple of things I would say just about when he took over. It was in the summer of 2013 when Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill both left the club. I just wonder whether one of them, like someone like David Gill, had he stayed for a further year to work alongside David Moyes, because then you've got the actual movement from one manager to another would have almost been smoother. But it was almost like everything changed from the moment Ferguson and Gill left, and then Moyes and Ed Woodward came into position at Manchester United. Also, you talk about the managers, if they'd hired someone like Jurgen Klopp, if they'd hired someone like Pep Guardiola. I was just looking at the squads and the squad makeup of Liverpool, Manchester City and Manchester United. If you look at Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp has got a squad there that almost entirely are his players, barring Joe Gomez, James Milner, Jordan Henderson, Roberto Firmino, Divock Origi. There might be a couple. I was doing this rather quickly just before we came on air. But the majority of them, you can call them Jurgen Klopp's squad. Pep Guardiola as well. When he came, Kevin De Bruyne was there, Raheem Sterling was there, Fernandinho was there. They're still at the club, but the rest of the squad is made up of Pep Guardiola's players. And if you look at Manchester United, their squad is made up of players. There are two players, I think, still from Sir Alex Ferguson's time. Yep. There are players from David Moyes' time. There are players from Louis van Gaal's time, from Jose Mourinho's time, and of course Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's time. So I think when we talk about player recruitment, that's all well and good, but the managerial recruitment, that has been so important when you look at what's happened to their big rivals. And I think now Manchester United decided we need to go in a different direction here. So as much as there's a lot of criticism pointing towards Ralf Rangnick and his appointment, I think what Manchester United are trying to do is create a thread that will run through that club. So, for example, Rangnick will come in until the end of the season. He will stay at the club for 2 years in a consultancy role. But I think what they're trying to do there is let's bring in a manager that can work with the players, because history will always show it is much easier to get rid of a manager rather than a load of players at one foul swoop.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to do, and Manchester United are evidence of that because they've still got all of these players from 4 previous managers. So if they can get the playing squad right and say a manager doesn't work, they can still bring in a manager who can work with those players, because the DNA will be running through that club. If you look at the managers that they've appointed since Sir Alex Ferguson, David Moyes, Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, could you honestly say that any of them share each other's philosophy? Probably not.
Definitely not. Let's talk about the players, Carve, that nearly but weren't quite United players, because they've missed out on some great players.
Look, I think the problem started straight away during that first summer transfer window when David Moyes was appointed. United had some big targets. Again, if only they'd been able to get some of those players. I'm thinking of Thiago, who was at Barcelona at the time. Now he plays for Liverpool. He went to Bayern Munich as well. They missed out on him. Cesc Fabregas.
Yeah.
They were in talks to sign Cesc Fabregas. They didn't manage to pull that off. Toni Kroos. They were in talks to sign Toni Kroos as well. That didn't come off. Gareth Bale. They went all out to try and get Gareth Bale. They matched everything that Real Madrid were offering for Gareth Bale, and it was left to Gareth Bale to decide, where do you want to go, Manchester United or Real Madrid? He chose Real Madrid. There was nothing Ed Woodward or David Moyes or Manchester United could do about that. If you remember that window, I think they ended up signing Fellaini was the only signing they made. And that was like 5 minutes before the window closed. So there were problems straight away with the transfer strategy. More recently, of course, they've missed out on Erling Haaland. They could have signed him. He went to Borussia Dortmund instead. Jude Bellingham, he chose to go to Borussia Dortmund as well.
But this begs my earlier question. Are they still a club that players want to play for? Because all these players didn't want to.
No, definitely, there's still a massive pool for players. Manchester United missed out on big signings when Sir Alex Ferguson was there. They couldn't convince Alan Shearer to move there. They couldn't convince Paul Gascoigne to move there. Clubs always miss out on players, and we need to retain a sense of perspective, because Manchester United have spent more than £1 billion under Ed Woodward, and they have pulled off some major signings. I'm talking about Paul Pogba. I'm talking about Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I'm talking about Ronaldo this summer as well. So they have signed a lot of players. They've missed out on players as well. But I think the main problem has been that Ed Woodward wasn't able to get a Pep Guardiola or a Jurgen Klopp. And I know that United have tried. All these managers, Klopp, Guardiola, Tuchel, Pochettino, have been on their radar, but the timing hasn't worked out for them. And I think if only.
Speaking of timing, Axel Tuanzebe, what's going on there?
Yeah, this one's close. He's close to completing a move to the Italian club Napoli. Sky Italy are reporting that the deal itself was finalised yesterday. It could be worth about £1 million all in for that loan. That includes a loan fee, and then there are add-ons as well if Napoli become Serie A champions. Looks unlikely at the moment. And then another €200,000 if Tuanzebe makes a certain number of appearances, and he's expected in Italy tomorrow to take a medical ahead of formally signing.